Hey everyone, welcome to another master class. And this week we're going to be continuing the topic that we started last week. If you did not join last week, I talked about editing photos on your cell phone with the free Adobe Lightroom app. So today we're going to continue with covering Adobe Lightroom on desktop. So this is not a free app, but the functionality is similar to the mobile app. And it's one of my primary tools for editing photos, especially the single shot exposures, which you can just capture with your camera on your tripod or your cell phone in your tripod, depending on your equipment setup. So we'll talk about that by jumping into the app. But first, I want to quickly mention who I am. If you don't know who I am, I'm Sam. And I run a company called Growth Gallery Astros. I offer workshops and education in photography and editing. So looking at the Lightroom app here, you can see there is a basic photo here that I have captured. So let me find the right application here. All right, so you're seeing the Milky Way here, and you can see I have not edited it. So I'm not covering in this video. I'm definitely not covering how to use all the features of Lightroom. If you want to learn how to use the features of Lightroom, I actually have an entire courses on my YouTube channel for that. You can go watch those, and that'll give you an extensive overview of all the features that are available in the Lightroom Classic, as well as the other Lightroom Creative Cloud and web applications. So you can see here that this exposure of the Milky Way, I guess a few things to note. One is that the whole image looks kind of reddish or pinkish colored. This is due to the fact that I'm using an Astro modified camera. Your images will probably not look like this unless you have an Astro modified camera. You'll probably see a more true to life color image, which will make your editing a little bit easier. So I'll point out the differences when we get to actually adjusting the colors here, so that you can know the steps that you should be taking versus what I'm taking in this particular image. So we want to maybe we can first we can look at a few things in this image before we start editing. So first of all, like you can see, there's a whole bunch of planes here. So there may be some controversial opinions on what you should do about that. So obviously one way to get rid of these planes would be to capture multiple images and blend them together. And that would work very well for removing the planes. But maybe you're just getting started and you aren't ready to take on that level of challenge. I can show you how to remove the planes here. And I frequently remove the planes from my images, and a lot of people might say that that's changing the image, and it probably adds and removes stars from the image. But I think on a whole, especially the images I post on social media, no one's going to be able to tell the difference. And unless you're really zooming into those specific locations in the image, I don't think it affects the image in a tangible way. So again, maybe, I don't know if I've discussed it on here, but my opinion is that my photography is an art form and not necessarily like a science. So I take general liberty to make changes like this to my photos. So yeah, so there's planes here. We'll talk about how to remove those. Let's see, you'll see, we can look at the corners of the image. You can see like that there's some stars that are stretched out in the corners here. So this is really common with basically any photos that you take, that your lens will not have perfect details into far corners. But there's a few things we can do to help with that, so we'll talk about those. If we look in the middle of the image, you can see that the stars are much more round looking. They look pretty good for this particular image. And you'll see if we go down to the bottom left corner, you'll see the stars are beginning to elongate again here as well. So these are these are normal. So if you're seeing this in your image and you're like, well, that's really terrible. Well, it's most people aren't going to zoom into your image that closely. Even if you print your image, like you can print your image pretty large, and if you're standing a few feet away, you won't really notice too much of the star elongation. So this image here, I think we can look at the details on it. It's ISO 1600, shot at 24 millimeters, f/3.2, and the exposure is 60 seconds long. So one thing what we'll notice if we edit this here is that the foreground is not going to be completely clear, because this is a tracked exposure with one of my my star trackers. I have other videos on my channel discussing those, so if you want to learn which ones I use and how I use them, you can check those out. But here we're just going to edit this as if the foreground is looking good for this particular image, because the goal is to just give a simple editing example. So we will make some changes. I think maybe the first thing is to see what detail is available to us in this image. So I'll go over to the exposure and I'll make it really bright. And so you can see here that there's in the foreground here a rock, and then I believe this was taken out in the Black Canyon, which is a national park that's in western Colorado. You can see there's a rock here in the foreground, and then there's like some sort of like wall over here of a canyon, and it looks like a car was passing on the road over there. So you can see those are the amount of detail that we can expect to get out of our foreground. Obviously, when we're brightening the foreground like that, our sky is completely blown out. So that's probably not where we want to leave the image. So we'll brighten things just enough here. So you want to be really careful with especially the middle of the galaxy here. This is the Sagittarius A star, where supposedly there's a black hole in the center, and it can very easily become blown out in your images. So you want to be careful that you are like stretching your image properly here with the exposure and contrast in such a way that you don't lose the detail here and overexpose that area of the Milky Way. Another thing that you might notice off to the right hand side here, there is definitely like a bright halo here. Especially that became apparent after we added some exposure to the image. And this is a result of the city of Montrose, actually, which is probably, I don't know, 20 miles away from this location. So that is definitely something we might want to think about making some adjustments for. But you can see the rest of the horizon line is very dark, especially off to the left side of the image. You see here we have a tree kind of sticking off into the left side, another feature of this image we might want to do something about. And yeah, so that's the basic idea. So now let's see if we can take the next steps, which I would probably do is balancing color. Usually I do that before I do more of my edits on the image. So obviously we have a very purple hue here. So there's probably several ways we can edit this. To if you go through my course on Lightroom, you'll know that there's the tint and the temp color editing tools here, as well as the color mixer, color grading, which also allow you to make some color edits. There's one or two other places, but I basically never use those editing tools. So for this, we're going to concentrate mostly on changing the temp and the tint. So if you've watched enough of my videos, you'll know that how I usually do this is I bump the saturation vibrance as high as they can possibly go, and then I adjust until a bright area of the Milky Way looks white. And then if I scale back the vibrance and the saturation, usually I get pretty reasonable results for my colors, right? So you'll see I'm going to move the tint first to take away the purple hue, but then things become very yellow, so then I have to reduce the temperature to the blue. And then obviously at some point here, right, the results become personal preference. So this is too far, right? Everything turned blue, so we probably want to adjust about right there. see, maybe we, and yeah, so again, this is just personal preference, and you definitely want things to look pretty like not too color like saturated. The nebulas actually look not too bad here, and then the yellow stars are really standing out, and the galaxy is looking kind of yellow. I think that looks okay. So if we scale back the vibrance and saturation to, I don't know, 20-30%. So you can see this actually produced a relatively good color image. You see the galaxy doesn't have a strong color. You can see that the light pollution is providing a pretty strong gradient there, which is somewhat unfortunately like kind of blurring out the row Fucci detail over here. But we'll see if we can bring back some of that detail with the contrast edits. So obviously you might in your images want to have like a less muted color here, right? This is just really natural like lighting and color for your Milky Way. You could definitely, if you wanted to make it more blue, if there was like snow, you wanted it to feel colder, like you could definitely go cooler with your temperature. Or if you wanted a warmer feel, right? So if you're out in the desert and you're taking pictures of the Milky Way, obviously you could warm up your image like this. And then it might make more sense if you're out in the desert with like sand or something where you're having a warm image. But yeah, so like you just, again, this is a personal preference sort of thing. And you can just play with it until you're happy with the result. So let's see if I can enhance the purples a little bit here, just a little bit. All right, let's go with this. So you can spend a lot of time on this. Another thing we might try to do is try to enhance some of these the purple nebulas in here that are showing up because of my Astro modified camera. I'll show you how I would enhance those details as well. So obviously there's a lot of different ways to enhance detail in an image. And so we have all of the contrast like features of the light highlights, shadows, whites, blacks, and all of these presence features, the texture, clarity, and dehaze. So for this particular image, what I'm thinking is since we have a sky that's like almost at the right brightness, but the foreground is not visible, I think I want to do most of my edits using the masking tools. So if we come over to this tool, apparently I have not been using this in a while. All right, so I select sky. Let me like start over again so I explain exactly what I'm doing. So I come to this circle over here. It's a mask, so select a mask. And then if it's your first time using it, it'll give you the tutorial that I just like jumped through. And then you'll want to select to edit the sky in the foreground separately. You'll want to select the sky here. And so if we want to do our sky edits first, we can take this existing mask that I created of just our sky and do all the edits associated with the sky. So we probably want to increase contrast a little bit and drop down the black point a little bit, increase the white. And then if we keep going down here, you could make these adjustments are just the ones that I usually use to some extent. So if we increase the clarity and a little bit of dehaze here, and some of these things like our personal preference, some of these things like I would say objectively make your image worse. So you can always, like, after making your changes, go here and see if you like the result. So this is the before edit, after edit. So I think that looks okay. It seems to be preserving the detail while enhancing some of the contrast. And you can see because of the light pollution off on the right side here, there's going to be detail that I don't think we're going to be able to recover. But that's okay. The core of the Milky Way is still looking okay. The other thing that you really want to keep in mind when you're doing this is it's pretty easy to edit the sky and the foreground separately in such a way that they don't look like they fit together. So you want to be careful how hard you're going on your contrast edits, especially with the sky, because if the contrast is too strong and your foreground is kind of distant on the horizon, the blending between the sky and the foreground might not look very natural. So yeah, just that's a good tip for editing these separately. All right, so now that we have a basic edit on the sky, let's switch to the foreground. So we'll do a similar process that we did to create the sky mask. We'll select sky again, and then I'll come down here to this checkbox over in the right corner to invert the mask. And so now the foreground is selected. So the first thing we want to do to the foreground, right, is to brighten it significantly, because we can't really see any of the details. So you don't want to go too bright probably, but you want to be able to enhance some of the details so that you end up with an image that you can see some of the detail in the foreground. And maybe bump up the shadows a little bit here so that the far canyon wall is just having just enough texture that we can see some detail there. So sometimes one thing you want to be careful with your foregrounds is it's really easy to end up with too much saturation, in my opinion, and then it doesn't look like it's a night photo anymore. So like this particular image doesn't look too bad. If we zoom in, you can see there's some green bushes, but they're not like the most prominent thing in the image, and they don't seem to be detracting from the rest of the composition. So I think we'll leave the saturation as it is. And then obviously we can probably enhance some of the foreground features, maybe add some clarity a little bit of texture, and maybe a little bit of contrast here. Again, you want to be careful because like when you start adding the contrast, you're going to darken the dark points in the image more. So you're basically essentially undoing your increase in shadows here. And yeah, I'm not sure if this helped the image or not. Again, this is a personal preference type of thing. So you can see, like, look, if I drag the clarity really far, it completely darkens the canyon wall. I'm not sure if I like that. So I think I won't do too many edits to that. So like something like this looks reasonable. It still looks like a nice scene in the foreground. If you look at the back canyon wall, there's just a little bit of texture there that you can see. And then yeah, this foreground is never going to be perfect because it's a tracked image, so everything in the foreground will appear to be moving. And so I think I'm happy with that. All right, so we want to address a few different things about this image that can be improved. So the first thing we'll cover is the plants in the sky. We talked about that. So in order to do that, we can come over to the healing or remove tool here. So there's a few different features for remove. So there's this like AI spot removal thing. There's the healing brush and the clone stamp. So they do different sort of things. So the AI remove will try to find similar areas in the photo and use some AI functionality to figure out how to replace it so it looks natural. The healing stamp is a little healing tool is a little bit different. It will find a similar location in your image, and it will do a color blending to try to get everything to match. The clone stamp tool is a little bit more simple than that. It finds a similar part of the image and then just tries to blend it in without like accounting for the color and other gradients that might be in the image. So this is, again, the results you get with this are up to your trial and error, I would say. I wouldn't necessarily say that one always works better than the other. I use all three of them in different cases. For this, we'll start out by trying the AI generate here. So we will click on one end of here, and then if we hold the shift key down and click on the other end, it will select the whole area. And then we can come over to this remove button here. If we click remove, it should run the remove AI tool here. And then hopefully we'll end up with something that shows the sky without the plane. So you can see it's not perfect. I can very clearly see where the remove tool operated in this particular case. And if we zoom out, you really can't see it. So I guess the results here depend on what's the purpose for your image. So if you're just posting on social media, obviously that remove that we just did was good enough. No one's going to look at this photo and know that you removed the plane there. But if you're going to print out your image on a larger canvas, then obviously this is kind of visible actually. So for sake of example here, let's hit delete and get rid of this, and we'll try one of these other tools and see if it gives us a better result. So one thing we can try to do is a couple things we can do. We can try to reduce the size of the area where we're trying to remove, and we can also increase the feather, which will make the blend look cleaner potentially. So if we do the same process here, we're using the healing brush this time. We hit this, and then we do a shift click over here, and then it will select a different part of the image. And again, you can see that it left parts of it look better, parts of it look worse in my opinion. These blobs here do not look very good. Again, if you zoom out, it's hardly visible. If you were posting to social media, you probably wouldn't actually notice. So if we go back here, I think we can accomplish better than this. So that gives us, we have a few options now. So one thing I immediately notice is that the area that is selected to do the replacement is kind of part white in the Milky Way. So that will potentially cause the weird blends to happen, because it might take some dark cloud, dust cloud areas of the Milky Way and try to blend it with this other part. So we might be better off moving the blend to a different part of the image. So if we drag it over here and see if it gives us a better result or not, you can see right away that part of the blend is better, part of it is not. So I think we might have to try something a little bit different. So I'm still not completely satisfied with that. It would probably work if you're posting on social media, but I think we can do better. So one thing I noticed is the right half of this plane or satellite trail is outside of the Milky Way, and the other part is not. So maybe it would benefit us to do this in 2 steps. So let's take this first part here and see if we can remove that effectively. And it's not perfect, but it looks a lot better. Let's see. Try one more time here. If we do this, let's go beyond the end here and see if that does a better blend. So that looks relatively reasonable to me. I don't think I would notice this at first glance. That's the best blend of that part of the healing stamp that I've done here. So now I think separately we can remove the rest, right? So if we start here and start here, let's see if that worked better. So yeah, so see, this is working a whole lot better, just selecting different parts of the trail at the same time. So you can see, I think I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. The trail is completely gone. And so let's move on to the other one. So we'll probably cover those more quickly, especially the one down the right corner. This one, as you get closer to the horizon, it's easier to remove objects because the blending is generally just better, because there's less detail on the horizon line, right? And so everything kind of just blends together. You can see first try, just like regular blending, nothing, you can't even see it at all. All right, so let's go to this next plane here. So if we go with a similar approach to before, so one thing we want to be really careful with this particular plane is, like, this is an area of the sky that that someone might actually notice the difference. Because, so we want to be careful that we don't add or remove too many important stars from the image. So we might actually want to, with this one, we might actually want to try the AI remove again, because there's a chance that that could do better, since the AI remove is actually hopefully only addressing a smaller portion of the image, whereas the other healing tools are actually required to pick up different parts of the image and replace this particular one, and there's potentially more pixels covered with that. Let's try this. See if that, yeah, see, that looks pretty clean. Let's try that and see if it works without like adding too many stars or removing any of the important ones. So we'll go through the whole plane trail here. Hopefully, let's look at that and see. So one thing that's kind of helping us here is, like, generally Rofuchi, you can see a lot of detail of these dust clouds here, so that light pollution is kind of blocking it. So you can see that it's not perfect, but I think for the purposes here, I think that's good enough. So obviously this is up to you. If you want your images to be more perfect, then you can spend more time on this. And again, I'm click on one side of this, I click shift click to select the whole line, and I click remove. And then let's look at that and see if I notice anything particularly bad. That actually looks okay. So I think that was all of the major planes. There were a few other satellites that I saw in here, but they're not really standing out in this image. So the sky looks pretty clean now. So the three main planes are, I think one of them was a satellite, are now removed. Let's see, so and then we can look at the image as a whole and see if it looks like it fits together. So I think the colors on the foreground are not like overly drawing to the image, and the sky, so that means the sky can have whatever color it wants. So if the foreground colors are tinted one way or another, so if this foreground is, say, really red, then you either want to try to match the sky with the red color, or you want to try to complement it with maybe blue. With Astro photos, you really want to avoid greens in the sky unless there's a strong aurora or air glow, because like green in the like astronomy is not considered a natural color. So you really want to avoid greens basically at all costs for the most part. So yeah, so the image, it seems to match pretty well. And since the horizon line is pretty close, there wasn't a lot of fog or something like that, we don't have to worry too much about trying to blend the sky horizon line with the foreground. It looks pretty okay, because you would, with this kind of horizon line, you would expect a clear cut between the edge of the hill there and then the sky. The other thing that I noticed where it was a little bit off was the tree over on the left side of the image here. So I'm barely actually seeing the tree. So like, well, you could obviously try to crop the tree out, right? Like this. It might make the image a little bit better. And let's see, choose let's keep the aspect ratio 2:3. If we want to focus to be in the Milky Way, we can try to crop it down here, have the left third of the image here be the middle of the Milky Way and have the composition come down, the Milky Way come down towards the center. That might be a slightly better composition. So you've got all whole third, the left third all lined up here, kind of composed with the rest of the image. I think that's pretty reasonable. So something like this could be a final image. Something else, you might want to try to add some vignetting. So this is, you want to draw the attention to the middle of the image potentially. So again, this is personal preference. So you can see what we're doing. If we do the extreme, you can see that all the corners become black. If we scale it back, I don't think it's helping. That the sky is definitely hurt by the vignetting. So if we want to add a vignetting to this image, I would go to the masks, create masks. I would do a radial gradient, and then I'll make the gradient, the radial area very large, so it's selecting the whole image now, and then I'll invert it. And then after inverting it, maybe I'll drop the highlights so it hits mostly the corners in the bottom here. So there's a few different ways to do this. I don't want it to affect the sky as much, so I just want it to affect the foreground. So I'll move the selection to the top here. So this top part, since I inverted, the mask will be the inverse. So the most selected will be on the outer ring here, and the least selected will be in the center. You can kind of, when I hover over it, you can kind of see the selection, that maybe the corners up here are a little bit selected, and then the foreground is completely selected, which is what I was hoping for. Maybe this isn't the right, highlights is not right. You can try doing exposure. Again, this is a personal preference thing. So you just want to make sure that you're drawing your attention to the right part of the image. So yeah, I think that looks okay. If we, let's see, yeah, you got to be careful, right? Because if you do, one thing I noticed as soon as I did that is the canyon wall lost its detail. So you want to be careful with that. So maybe that looks okay, and then I can get carried away. You can just keep going on forever with this. So if I want to bring back the detail here, I can just brush in that and maybe do a brush there, and then increase the shadows a little bit there. And then that way you can bring back the details. So again, like a lot of this is personal preference and masking and how much time you actually want to spend on your particular edit for your photo. But you can see here that there's some nice detail. Again, right, I did not address the light pollution over here. So I could just take a choice and set, that's how the sky looked, right? Because light pollution was there, not a whole lot I could do about that. Again, or I could try like creating another mask here. Maybe do quick brush over this area here. And then I probably want to turn the temperature a little bit warmer, maybe, potentially. You gotta play with this a little bit. I think adding some color temperature there was helpful. You could potentially benefit from desaturating it a little bit, depending on how blue it's kind of bluish, I noticed, so maybe desaturating it could help. It's like I said, it's a personal preference type of thing. Maybe that, I mean, these are very slight adjustments, just a slight adjustment to the color temperature, slight adjustment to saturation. And then since it's the highlights, you can drop the whites or the highlights. Maybe that could help a little bit. But again, you don't want to like go extreme on this. If I go all the way white, then obviously you can see exactly where I masked the area here. And yeah, that looks okay, maybe. Let's see, let's do the highlights instead of whites and see if that improves it. Yeah. Yeah, so it's really hard to see. Maybe if we zoom out, it'll be easier to see if it's improving the image or not as a whole. So, I think very minor changes like this might help the image a little bit. It's hard to say. And then we can come over to the mask and turn it on and off and see if it's a little bit less blue. And it doesn't look like super unnatural. So something like that could potentially be considered to make the image better. It's a little bit less distracting from the Milky Way if you wanted it that way. So yeah, I think this looks pretty good. I think that this would be an image that I'd be happy with. I did mention that we could try to enhance some of these nebulas that I captured more detail on because of my Astro modified camera. So how I might do that is go over to the color mixer. So you got to be careful with what colors are in your image when you're doing this, because you might enhance the detail and the saturation of the nebula, but you might also cause other negative consequences in your image. So you want to be careful with it, and then also try to identify what the colors are. So these are, it looks like a purple, so maybe if we increase the saturation on the magenta here, yeah, that's clearly affecting the saturation there. So if we bump that, and then maybe the purples a little bit, and then sometimes even bumping the reds will help bring out the nebulas, the three main ones. So if we look at the whole image, those changes don't seem to have affected the rest of the image here. Obviously, if you were using Photoshop, right, you can do masking and select just the nebulas and change the color there, and then you know it doesn't affect the rest of the image. But since we're doing a simple edit here in Lightroom, we can see that this doesn't seem to affect the rest of the image, which is our goal, right? If we increase our saturation and it causes problems in the other parts of the image, then like we don't want to do that, because we don't want to degrade our whole image. Again, we can come over here and select the eye on and off, and you can see that we added a decent amount of saturation to those nebulas. All right, cool. So I think something like this could be a reasonable image. Obviously, this image is still a little bit darker, so for social media and purposes like that, it looks good. Now, if you were trying to print your image out, like on a canvas or something, the edit would look different. Maybe I can talk about how I would change the edit for that. One of the main things you would do is you would want the image to be brighter than this for your edits, because whatever you see on your screen, like when you print it, like almost certainly would turn darker with all the print shops that I've used for printing my photos. So yeah, so this is a single Milky Way photo edit here in Lightroom. So a little bit more advanced than the free photos that I showed last week in the mobile application. So if you have questions here, let me see if there was any comments in the chat. There's no comments there. If you have questions, let me know. And if not, like I think this is a pretty full edit here, and hopefully it covers everything that you would need to know for editing a simple Milky Way photo you could go out and take with your camera and your tripod, or even just your cell phone and your tripod. These edits are obviously, like, the effectiveness are dependent on the quality of the image you're taking. I recommend shooting all your images with the RAW setting. You can see here there's the AR.ARW files. The RAW files are like having a lot more detail on them, so you'll be able to bring out a lot more of the details in Lightroom when you're doing your edits. So yeah, I think overall that covers a pretty comprehensive edit of a single photo in Lightroom. So thanks for joining today, and if you are interested in more content like this, you can subscribe to my channel, or if you go down to the links below, you can find a link to my workshops that I'm offering in the Western Colorado area. You can see one of the locations. Where is it? Up over here. That's the Colorado National Monument. If I can twist my computer the right way, that one right there. So that's a Milky Way panorama I did there. And if you go to my Instagram, you can see more photos from that location. But I have workshops upcoming there and at the Black Canyon National Park in the Western Colorado area. And if you're interested in a private workshop, you can reach out to me and we can discuss details on that. I'm authorized to do that in quite a number of places out here in Western Colorado. So yeah, if there are not any questions, I think we will wrap up the stream for this week. I hope you're enjoying these topics covering the editing process for your Milky Way photos. And if you are looking for how to set up your gear or to capture photos, I have other videos on my channel here, and you can check those out. And hope you guys have clear skies.